What's up, 8-Rack community? Austin Blankenship coming at you again with Rack City MTG. Have a little bit of bonus content here today. I've been playing, just full disclosure, a lot more ad nauseum lately. However, the deck has I was 4-0 and going into the 5th round, because I feel like that deck's very favored in the meta right now. And I cast my Angel's Grace to do a normal fog of my opponent. And it turns out Angel's Grace is bugged right now. So if they hit you with combat damage, you go to less than 0 for some reason. So can't play that deck right now. Don't really want to worry about trying to pick up something else. Want to play some Rack. Excited to play it. Here for it. Something I've noticed more and more is that Dothy Voidwalker has looked a lot less good the more that the meta kind of shakes out, where it's primarily Unholy Heat's the main removal spell. So we are going to give a new card a chance today. We are going to give Graveyard Trespasser a chance from the new Innistrad set. So just to give you a quick little synopsis of what Graveyard Trespasser does, it has Ward, discard a card. So it has the Reality Smasher effect, where if you target it with a spell, if they don't discard that spell, then the spell is countered. Of course, this doesn't apply if the spell is uncounterable, but nevertheless, here it is. So it fits in our game plan sideways that way, that if they want to get rid of it, they have to go down a card. 2 and a black is kind of nice for casting costs with our colorless lands, so instead of double black, I think that's about the same mana intensity in our deck, and the way that our curve usually shakes out. The big thing, however, though, is whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, it is making up for our passive graveyard hate right now. So exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. If a creature card was exiled that way, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. But when it flips and it attacks, you exile 2, and for each one that's a creature, you gain 1 life and your opponent loses 2 life. So it's actually a pretty fast clock on its own. Great against both burn and other decks that, it's just generally fits within our game plan. It's not the fastest speeder in the world. It's not a Rotting Regisaur, but Rotting Regisaur has gotten a lot worse since Unholy Heat became popular. This is just something fun to try. I don't know if it's going to make any final cut, but anytime there's new cards from a new set, I like to try them out. All that being said, I got my refund of play points back from getting messed out of my 5-0 this morning, so we are going to roll a Modern League with this 8-Rack deck. Not expecting a lot necessarily, but there's a big queue. We can get some good matchups. Rack is never at a loss for being able to win some games. So here's to a good league. Let's get after it. Let's do it. Let's see. We'll focus on playtesting that Graveyard Trespasser too. If we get the opportunity to bring it in, we're going to bring it in a little more often than we maybe normally would. So fun league today. I'm excited. Hope you are too. Our hand looks like it lines up very well against most decks in the meta, so we are going to keep it. This reminds me of Legacy Pox and 8-Rack deck of old. It warms my heart to see Urborg and Mishra's Factory in the hand instead of Urza's Saga. So just by that start, we're going to assume that it's probably a Delvery type list. So we're actually going to Thoughtseize here instead of Inquisition. The reason for this is it's very likely that their threat in hand is Murktide Regent, and this might be our last chance to resolve a actual hand disruption spell. So that's what we're going for. That's usually you almost always lead on Inquisition, but we're going to take the Archmage's Charm pretty easily. It looks like they're on like a Jeskai Control or maybe Jeskai Ragavan. Either way, it actually looks like we're pretty favored in this matchup. We are going to use this opportunity to Inquisition one of their 2 bolts away. And that also lets us know if there's anything else, if we want to Raven's Crime or Inquisition. So we'll take the bolt. And we'll crime away a card out of their hand. Pretty easy game here so far. Not entirely sure what our opponent's on. Right now, if I was guessing, I would put them on a Jeskai list. We may as well check with the Inquisition here, make sure they didn't draw a counterspell. Boom, get rid of the Prismatic Ending. Play a Rack. play a Shrieking Affliction. This is fun. This feels like a old school 8 rack right here. Still don't know if they are a control deck or a Ragavan deck. Guess we'll find out. Oh yeah, we're just going to do the Raven's Crime things here. They get rid of Kaldra. Honestly, let's just go ahead and get rid of that last card in hand. They might as well bolt us, but that protects our Mishra's Factory later, gets them down a land. Maybe it's correct to hold that, but I don't know. I like it. I don't know exactly what they're going for here. I like the idea of racing. If they play a threat, they have to draw it, or they have to hold it more than likely. And it puts pressure on if they want to remove our Mishra's Factory later. It's more difficult. We'll just get that card out of hand, and that should be game in most scenarios. Yep. Starting out strong. Can't imagine there's anything that gets them out of this spot. Expecting a concession here. But they're thinking an awful long time. Maybe they drew a prismatic ending and trying to do math. Nope, there's the concession. Just a little bit of lag. But pretty easy win. Let's go with some... We kind of know what their list is. We don't really want to bring in a creature threat against their deck because they have prismatic ending and a few other cards. So I am going to try to bring this in more often than usual, but it just would be... Not any creature threat, no matter what it was, would not be great this game, I don't think. So we are going to bring in probably just take out the Funeral Charms. We might see a Ragavan, but we didn't see it that game. Collective Brutality to try to kill a Stoneforge Mystic and get one of their heavy instant or sorceries. And I think I like this setup. If we see a Murktide Regent next game, we'll bring in our Sudden Edicts as well. But as of now, I like this 60. Let's go for it. Pretty good hand. Don't like 2 Urborg, but we can pitch one of them to the Collective Brutality for pretty much free, so... Very interactive hand. Here's probably the Ragavan that I didn't see last game. Yep. So that would be a little bit better if that was a Funeral Charm, but now we know at least. I guess we're just going to fire this Dismember off. I just don't want to deal with this monkey. If they want to force a negation that, by all means, go for it. But I think that's worth it. Hopefully we see a tapped out. Okay, so that was their only creature threat. Nice. Let's crime them. If they don't force a negation this, I'm imagining they probably don't have one. This top deck Fatal Push was a turn behind, but got rid of their Batter Skull. Nice. This is fun. This is Rack doing what Rack wants to do. I'm having a good time. Hope you all are too. Playing a lot of combo recently. A lot of like trying to be passive and set up certain lines and look for windows and playing really long... I don't know what the best word to say. Not unfun games for sure. I've had a fun time playing the deck, but not as fun as normal games. Not been my favorite. I prefer playing the Rack, but still have fun playing ad nauseum in decks like that too. So they get rid of the Wear Tear. Let's just duress them with this Collective Brutality, I think. I don't think we're going to be able to have an opportunity to kill something now. It's likely that they would dash a Ragavan should they have it. That lets us know if and when it's safe to play our Rack. Or if they want to blow a counterspell on this, that's fine as well. Even if it's an Archmage's Charm here and they draw a couple cards and go up a card. Still okay with that. We end up staying card neutral if they do that. So just Snapcaster. Okay, Snapcaster, Flusterstorm. would be okay. I mean, Collective Brutality can't get a instant or sorcery from hand anyway. Okay. So they do have another instant or sorcery that they're trying to protect there. But right now we are beating them in the race, should it come to that, in a couple different axes. We have the Rack and the Fatal Push. Snapcaster makes me think that they are less likely to... that they're probably less likely to have an interactive, a Murktide Regent, because this doesn't synergize great. This also makes me think that we're not seeing Unholy Heat either. So this also makes me think that maybe the right move is to bring in the Graveyard Trespassers if we go to a game 3. We're going to try Shrieking Affliction, see if they counter it. I would if I was my opponent. We're not going to play this Rack in case the last card in hand is a Wear Tear. And we're not going to activate the Mishra's Factory for the same reason. Okay, that's fine. While the shields are down, we're just going to go ahead and Fatal Push that. Surprised that they let that one resolve. I guess they don't know about the Rack in our hand. Knowing that that was their game plan was to Archmage's Charm that. If we do get a game 3 once again, we'll be tempted to play out Racks instead. See if our opponent reacts to this in any way. I think we'll go ahead and play a Rack out here. If they want to counter that, that's fine. Hopefully they'll spin an Archmage's Charm stealing this. Oh, opponent, you're about to learn a lesson. Someone actually mentioned this in one of the comments. Once the player is chosen with this Rack ability, it can't change. It doesn't matter who has control of it. So that's kind of what I was hoping for with that Archmage's Charm. That they basically mind rotted themselves by doing that. So Ragavan incoming. Well, so they are going to have multiple of our Racks in play. And they do get to choose us now. One of the annoying things about Ragavan is that it does let our opponents steal our Racks. We can also just choose to hold the cards too, so... What we'll probably do, actually, in response to these triggers, is we'll probably cash this Nurturing Peatland in. That will save us 4 damage. And now we're going to Inquisition our opponent and get this Ragavan out of their hand. Opponent still takes 2. Luckily, we have more experience playing our deck than our opponent has playing our deck, so... Hopefully in this situation we can come out on top, even though they control 2 of our Rack effects. Opponent is probably considering what they can get away with playing, so they're exiling the Prismatic Ending. We're actually pretty fine with that. I think we're just going to keep beating in with this Mishra's Factory, though, until they show us that they have a removal spell for it. Because we know there's 1 Force Negation, 1 Unknown, and I think the Unknown is a land, so in a good shape still. Hopefully we draw a land here so we can check the hand. And we do. Okay. Let's Inquisition them. Okay, so just take the Force Negation. Fire up our Mishra's Factory. But yeah, that the issue with the rack there last game, that's something that I mentioned in the comments last time. So 1-0, pretty easy. If Archmage's Charms causes it to change control, still, once the player is chosen, the player stays the same. But 2-0. Had we known that they were like a true Jeskai control deck, playing Snapcasters and such, we would have brought in the Graveyard Trespassers to try to disrupt that game plan. But it looked like that they were just the Jeskai Stoneblade Ragavan deck that's been floating around. But they seem to be going more old school. Typically, you don't see Snapcasters and Murktide Regents in the same deck. This isn't the worst hand, but only one true hand disruption spell. We can't cast the Smallpox. I think I'm going to send it back. I think this would be a hard 6 to keep even. Much better hand. We'll probably send the Pithing Needle back just in case there's nothing relevant to name. Okay, tapped Godless Shrine's a weird one. Glad that we have this Inquisition here to get some information. Don't really want to be in an Ephemerate Grief situation. Okay, so it is the Reanimator deck. I think we just want to get rid of this Teferi. That lets them kind of play around with our rack effects a little bit more. Funny enough, playing against this deck with the Ad Nauseam deck, the matchup was a little bit nightmarish. But I feel like we're doing pretty alright in this spot. We notably really don't want to cast this Raven's Crime, though, and let them discard their Archon of Cruelty for free. So we're just going to cast our Expedition map here. Play a land, and we're going to pass the turn. They will discard their Archon to this Faithful Mending anyway, more than likely, but no sense in just letting them have access basically to a free card by Raven's Criming them here. Like if they draw into a second reanimation target or something like that. No point in letting them off the hook. We'll see here if they are planning to Prismatic Ending this Expedition map or not. Wouldn't think so. I would think that they would think that there's better targets for this, but if that's what they want to spend their mana on, that's fine. Okay, now that their reanimation spell is in their graveyard, we are going to start firing the crime off. If they go Faithful Mending again here, we can So we're going to pass the turn from this spot, I think. We want to keep this land in hand in case we want to pitch it to a Raven's Crime later, and we want a higher density of cards with Smallpox. But if they fire off another Faithful Mending, okay, now we're going to make them discard at instant speed. That way that they don't actually stay get a card off this Faithful Mending, that they just mill 2 cards is the idea here. So this basically, playing it that way, basically 2-for-1 them. So we're in a pretty good spot right here. We want to keep something in hand to discard to some of the Archons of Cruelties. Otherwise than that, just draw a rack effect and we're in very good shape. They only have one of their 2 reanimation spells work here. Okay, so they just play their land for turn. I would have probably kept that if I were them for their Faithful Mending, but... Okay, so now we can play this land. Ended up being a good play for them to exile that Prismatic Ending. I'm not sure that they necessarily should have known that, but... Okay, Thoughtseize me. Yeah, that's fine. So that puts us a lot more dead to if they can flash back this, or get this Archon of Cruelty back. It tells me that they're probably not playing Chalice of the Void if they are running Thoughtseize, though. Or if they are, it's probably in the sideboard. We're in a good position here, though. Sans them just snap, which they're playing this pretty fast. So it's probably either a Prismatic Ending or a Reanimation spell. Oh no, so they're just playing this back. So still in pretty good shape. Yep. This goes off. We have to let them draw here because they could just Faithful Mending in response. And it's like giving them a free card if we do that. Okay. That's fine. We have plenty of ways to check their hand to get rid of that last card. Still in great shape here. Doesn't actually save them any damage bouncing the rack there. I guess their hope would be to draw like a counter spell to counter it, but it does turn off our instant speed Funeral Charm that was their draw. We'll go ahead. Yeah, we'll... Crap. Wrong button here. Play the rack again. Almost cast the Raven's Crime. Not thinking about it. They don't have any cards at hand, so that doesn't do much good. If anything, this Urborg can let us have a discard to the Archon later. Should we need it? Well, our opponent's scrying here I don't particularly like. Because we are going to be able to get rid of pretty much anything they could draw at this point. Unless they're specifically going to scry till they find a... the flashback reanimation spell, Unburial Rites. Then it might be a good play. But 2 cards on the bottom pretty much just lets us have their hand if it's anything but a land. Just in case it's the Spell Pierce or Flusterstorm or something, well, I guess just Spell Pierce. We'll go ahead and get that out of them. We'll play our Shrieking Affliction now. So Muldrifter. I think this is a pretty easy game at this point. Even if they get their flashback back, I guess they gain 3 life. So they could get a little bit tricky if they have a reanimation spell, but ideally their draw would just be Muldrifter here, like as the worst. Okay, so that they did have the thing that makes life a little bit more difficult for us. I guess I could have just pitched that. I should have pitched the Fatal Push, probably. Okay. Not sure I get this one either. So we're just going to replay it and make them discard again. I think if you're going to do that, wait till the next turn, but I don't know. I don't play their deck. I'm going to trust them on it. So we're going to make them discard. I'm going to play our land. We're going to play this Saga. And we'll have the Fatal Push to pitch to their Archon when it attacks. So they're actually... they have 1 turn, but they can flashback these Faithful Mendings. I guess one of them. So we are on a pretty reasonable clock. This deck is a little bit trickier game 1 without Graveyard Hate. It's not unwinnable game 1. Like, we were pretty far ahead here. We're still in the game. But, like I said, Muldrifter, the fact that this card is seeing so much play in Modern now is crazy to me. Play a little bit of Pauper, and of course it's a staple in Pauper. That is kind of the one card that, specifically Muldrifter Revoked probably gets them out of, like, gets them the win here, because they can now flash this back to gain the 2 life, and there's probably not much we can do. outside of a Smallpox this next turn that could save us. Even then, they may have counter magic. So Liliana might play as well. Probably just depends on the content of their hand at this point. Our best bet's probably they tap out and us draw an Edict effect to get rid of this Archon. The good news is this is definitely a matchup where the Graveyard Trespasser is very good. That's probably the worst draw we could have had, I think. Yeah, like that's, once again, Shrieking Affliction proving to be pretty bad in situations like that you already have more than one of them. So that's why I've stayed on the 2 plan. I think that's correct. We do... I guess there's a weird world where maybe they do something weird and lose here. I'm not sure. Probably if they just bounce the Urza Saga, that probably wins them the game right there. Well, I guess they don't even really need to do that. That actually might make it harder for them to win. Like in this spot, we can't even cast a Smallpox now. That's why this is so rough. Because they will get us to 1 off this attack. And they're not under any pressure to actually cast any spells. The Muldrifter is an interesting choice. I think that's become a little bit more popular, but it still surprises me whenever I see it. Opponent probably realizing that they can only hurt themselves by casting spells at this point. Unless specifically they're going to get an Archon to make us lose 3 life. I don't see a reason for them to cast anything, yeah. There's not much we can do. Well, let's see if we get lucky on our draw. We do not. Guess we can get... I mean, we're dead on the backswing no matter what we do. Let's just get a rack. I wasn't going to say let's scoop, but we might as well see what they do in response to this. If we can get a little bit more information out of them, we might as well. Obviously, either Pithing Needle or Nihil Spellbomb is correct there, but there's nothing we could do. We've lost the game at this point. Because all they have to do is attack with this Archon and they win. But we can get a little bit more information out of them doing this, and we don't have to give them information that we have access to Pithing Needle or Nihil Spellbomb in our deck. So good. And I will say that playing more combo has opened my eyes and I think made me a little bit of a better Magic player with lines like that where you want to show them less of your deck if possible. Can be very relevant when you're losing and can win you games later on. Our opponent just continues to cast spells here, like for no real reason. All they have to do is attack us and we're dead. Yeah, so they're just, we know that they have 4 of that card in their deck, but even if we didn't know that, that was unnecessary. I mean, like in the chance that we did, all they had to do is attack and they win. So perfectly fine. Fatal Pushes are easy to take out here. Funeral Charms are okay. They're not great, but they'll be one of the last ones to come out. Bringing in the Trespassers. Dismember is usually fine because the Archon is usually a 5/5 because of the Persist. So we'll keep that in. We'll go down the blind. Yeah, we'll go down the blind ones and bring in Leyline, Sudden Edicts, and we'll keep 2 Raven's Crimes in. Any other hate that we want? Don't think we want a second Pithing Needle. They really only play Teferi, I think. But now we have lots of Graveyard hate. Our removal spells line up better, so games 2 and 3 should be a lot better. This league or this match might make. I'm gonna say no to that. Tough hand here. I think we keep it. We don't have any of our hate pieces, but We have good removal spells. We have two good Edict spells, and we have Liliana, and now we have a clock as well. So we can Thoughtseize and see what we're working with here. We will probably just take the counterspell in this situation. Prismatic Ending is probably the better card against us, but knowing that they don't have a counterspell will free us up to get some advantage with this Liliana later on. And anytime Liliana can be a 2-for-1, I'm pretty happy about that. Let's see what they do here in response to this. They'll probably discard the Faithful Mending, but that'll give us information if they have a reanimation target as well. Okay, so they do not have a reanimation target, which means we're probably good to go here for just being a little aggressive against their hand. Try to minimize their value. Okay, them missing land drops is actually kind of big, especially late game. Yep, and if we can stick a Liliana here, I'll be pretty happy. The Mole Drifter plan is something new that I've not seen out of the Reanimation deck. I like that plan. It's a good value piece. It fits well with what their deck's trying to do, which is like they're not reanimating to just win the game on the spot. They're doing it for value. So that wasn't a land that we saw in their hand earlier, right? But they discarded both of the Watery Graves we knew about. So there's two true unknowns at this point. Yeah, Teferi's fine. Teferi tick up. Okay. We will just Liliana. We'll probably get rid of this Dismember here. But just having the coast clear to resolve this is good. Okay, and we got rid of their Persist, so that's nice. Very, very good. We should win this game, I think, from this point. There are worlds where we lose it, but... Okay, that's fine. I think we just have to live with possibly losing the Smallpox here. Or we live with... I think let's just not take this Liliana up this turn. I think that's correct. And just make them... if they want to play that game, they have to start holding cards in hand. Because her ultimate's not... Her ultimate is not as relevant as us having two Edict effects. Something weird that you don't see often is us not ticking up Liliana, but I think that happened in the last video I played as well. Okay, so the Bouncer Rack, that's fine. They don't have a relevant target in their graveyard right now. They can get an unmarked grave to put something in their graveyard. Next turn, if we draw another spell we want, what we may do is just crack the Peatland, play the Rack, and that way we have another potential spell that... Okay, that's fine. Not sure what else they could have here. So Chalice on 1. Okay, Chalice on 1 is good, but it's not game-ending. We do have a couple outs in this scenario, like getting a... Okay, so that's bad. Gosh, we get two of these every game. There are only two in our deck, and they're awful. Like, they're just... They're fine with the synergy of the deck, but God help us. Like, it's just... It's our lowest power level card in the entire deck by far. Like, it's one of those things that you don't see it seeing any play in Pioneer, you know. So our Graveyard Trespasser is good here. We have a couple good plays. What we'll probably do to him in this spot is just say lands like because we ultimate Liliana in a turn. So let's see what their scry is here. Urza Saga is a good out to this too. They did see Urza Saga last game, but, you know, we haven't drawn an Urza Saga. An Expedition map can't be played right now. So 2 cards on bottom is big. Hopefully they just scry again. They don't do that. I was going to say, they made that mistake last game of, like, when you have an active ability to make your opponent discard. Hard-casted Muldrifter would be their most annoying card. We're just going to say each player discards again. Next turn, we can ult Liliana and say you can keep your Chalice and your Teferi, or you can keep your lands. We could probably throw a land or two with their Teferis. They really need to hit a Prismatic Ending to get rid of this Liliana. They've already seen 2. So they are in a bit of trouble here. The Chalice is good against us, but it's not. We boarded out a lot of our 1-drops anyway. Okay. Let's see what you want to do, opponent. Well, what we'll do is we'll say you can keep your colored sources or your blue sources and your Chalice and Teferi in one pile. Because that basically just cuts them off mana for a long, long time. What the heck? Where'd Chalice go? There it is. Oh, so you just click it once. I'm used to having to double click. Alright, you can keep your colored sources or you can keep your hate pieces. Oh, so now they're probably in a lot of trouble. Them having an Archon now is rough. Because they do have a spot here where they can make us sack our Liliana and discard our Smallpox. So, okay, that's good. I was going to say, if they had exactly persist, we probably would lose the game from that point. But overall, I like our spot. So each player discards. I hate to show them the ley line, but that's where we're at right now. Interestingly, it's tempting to hold the rack because if they draw into persist, I think they just win the game, right? If we play the rack, so I think we have to pass the turn. We really have to protect this Smallpox because that's one of our only ways to get rid of an Archon, which is a bit like it's annoying, sure, but they would be able to, like, Archon, get rid of our Liliana, and get rid of our Smallpox all in one turn. Okay, so they do get rid of our Liliana. Oh yeah. It's Graveyard Trespasser time, baby. Woo! We got a reader now. Well, we are going to say bye-bye Archon. Take a damage. Oh, don't cast a spell either. Yeah, that's what we want. So now it flips. Oh, man. Opponent is in trouble. Now, we'll just attack them. We'll get rid of Faithful Mending, just in case they have, like, some sort of... Dome them for 4. Let's just play a rack here and pass. This still protects us from... Well, no, we don't have to worry about. So just counterspell, okay? Yeah, we could have sequenced that differently. Let's... Ward says or abilities, I think. Let's read Ward. Well, it doesn't show Ward. I'm pretty sure Ward is counterspell or abilities unless you discard a card. But there's no way for them right now to get a get one of their beaters in play. I wonder if they know that they have to do this. I'll say they got the value of being able to discard the Archon, but they kind of have to draw a counterspell in that spot because now we can just get rid of their Archon. Well, how annoying would that be if they drew the... Okay, so they drew the Muldrift revoked. That's fine. I was going to say, if they drew exactly Persist there, that'd be rough. Graveyard Trespasser looking good against the fair deck, right? We'll say... Bye-bye, Archon. I'm surprised this has looked good. I mean, I knew it would look okay. If this is like a meta deck, this card is insane against them. Oh, wow. Can we... So they can't even flash that back because of our Graveyard Trespasser. Well, what we would do is we would just take the Muldrifter to blank their reanimation spells. So I believe Persist is only your graveyard. Yeah, it's only your graveyard, so you can't like kill your opponent's creature then get it back for value either. Easy game. Graveyard Trespasser, winning Magic games. Opponent shows us their hand, and I'm not going to... They're kind of acting like, oh, we flooded out, but I mean, they do run like 20-some lands. It's not... Or like 24. Like, they run a high number of lands like we do. Like, drawing 7, 8 lands is not out of the ordinary on turn 13. All right. 1-1. We've got some good graveyard hate pieces if we can get it. I like the way that our deck is set up. I was gonna say we could have done something to play around Chalice a little bit better, but I'm not worried about it. We'll play it as is for now, and we'll keep. Resolving a Lily is nice if we can do that. No point in playing our Urborg yet. We'll play an Inquisition. That way, if all they have in their hand is reanimation targets, it doesn't just screw us in that way. We need to take the... Well, the Faithful Mending still gets good value from their graveyard, so I hate to take it. But let's take their Faithful Mending to try to get them on lands. If we can handle them before they can get 3 lands into play, and we can get this Lily online, we'll be in really good shape. The Thoughtseize doesn't get any better or worse here. Okay, now we can Thoughtseize. So get rid of Teferi, Lochtwain, get rid of Teferi. Okay. We don't want to play this Urborg because it fixes this Mystic Gate, makes their Mystic Gate a lot better. They're just going to discard an Archon here, but we have to start working on their hand eventually. They'll just... That makes their Faithful Mending worse because now, if they flash it back... Notably, we do want to keep one spell in hand all the time to protect from the Archon. Like if they top deck Persist here, exactly. Yep, that's the one spell that gets us pretty good. But we do have a way to take care of that. Okay, our opponent did draw a land. Which means they'll be able to hit our Liliana next turn, but we have to get it down now. Yeah, they ought to know that there's no reason we would play that exact way unless we had a second Liliana, or at least a second Edict effect. Opponent's done pretty good with... Like, they've played well and they've top-decked well. I feel like this is a relatively favorable matchup for us. not unbelievably favored. I mean, because once they start getting in the driver's seat, they close the door so fast. Okay, so now they can get rid of our Liliana. Oh wow. Okay. So back to back, really lucky top. Like one of those is good variance. Two of those that's luck. Well, and don't say we're not lucky too. One streak of luck deserves another, right? This just being a lightning helix and killing a planeswalker on its own is good. Like their threat doesn't have to stick around. It's just if it sticks around, we just lose though. That's the wildest thing about it. Wow, did they discard another? Oh, they discarded Fatal Push. Okay, this is probably the best card in the matchup. Like overall, it's definitely their best top deck most games. And getting it back isn't the best thing in the world, but it's something. But we do have a way to win in play. Our opponent is just very, very, very far ahead of us at this point. Yep. We knew about the prismatic ending, so maybe we should have played around that. But aggressively making their land drops here. Well, see, we knew that we would have the second rack. That's what it was, right? We just knew. That's why we played that the way we played it. It's going to require us to get a little bit lucky to win this game. Like, they've got a Faithful Mending that can flash back here. Probably discard their second Archon, too. Get 2 more looks at reanimation spells. They typically run, I think 6 is like their bare minimum. So, yeah, they have hit all 3 of their Archons at this point. Which means, like, their dead draws are way less. Hardcast Muldrifter's rough. That's like I said, this is the card that'll make the difference in the game in this matchup, which is weird because like it doesn't seem like it would even be a good card, but I like the tech. And I've played enough Pauper to know that card's not one you should sleep on, but we're going to play that just in case we hit a Graveyard Trespasser or Liliana, and they have some way to make us discard a card, because they have a few. No sense. Fatal Push doesn't hit this card. Like, there's no reason to pretend like we have something that doesn't work anyway. Another Persist here kills us, right? Wow, very, very, very annoying game from our opponents. Our opponent here. I can't help but feel like they've gotten quite a bit lucky on their draws. They hit all 3 Persists, all 4 Archons, right? Or at least 3 out of their 4 Archons. They hit a lot of them. Yeah, nothing we can do. It's alright. Maybe you mold to Graveyard Hate, but they have so much interaction that I don't think that there's not a whole lot of Graveyard Hate that... well, I guess, shoot, we have 7 pieces, 11 pieces of Graveyard Hate if you count Urza Saga. Like, the likelihood that we don't draw any of that game, and they draw all 3 of their Archons, all 3 of their Persists, pretty low. So we got by variance there. That tends to happen more when you play fair decks. That's why you see fair decks tend to 5-0 a little bit less as well. But game didn't look bad. Deck looked fine. Graveyard Trespasser looked good in the matchup. We'll see. That card might be just the nuts in this meta right now. But 1-1 could... I would say that we play that matchup 10 times, 7 or 8 times we win that matchup. In, if every draw is re-randomized and with the same opening hands. So, not upset about that one. It just happens. Let's move on. Let's get our money. Esper Sentinel's a pain. Honestly, this is the card that's the biggest annoyance for me personally in the format, because I don't think it's a good Magic card, but it is like, I mean, it's an okay Magic card. Let me rephrase that. Like it's just okay. It is so much better against our deck than it is probably literally any other deck in the format, though. This is probably once again the. Oh, so this is just Hammertime splashing blue. Okay. Next turn, they've dumped their hand. We've not really shown them that we're anything in particular. I think this turn we're going to Inquisition instead of letting them return that to hand for free. We'll just get their last card out of hand. Well, they got 2 cards, and that way we know a little bit more about what's happening there. Yeah, Pure Steel plus Colossus Hammer is a good combo. I think we take the Pure Steel, because once again, Pure Steel just... A lot of these cards in their deck just coincidentally draw so much cards. And, our deck is a deck that we don't like it when our opponents draw cards against us. We got plenty of removal to interact with a Colossus Hammer in play that's not automatically attached. So they'd have to draw like exactly Sigarda's aid to punish us here, but even then we don't die. Just I need to quit calling my shots of like what our opponent's going to draw, because like there's no other draw in our deck that would have been bad in this situation, that would have made our play bad. So that's funny how that works, but can't believe they wouldn't put it on the Esper Sentinel though. Yeah, because now that actually punishes our opponent quite a bit by not putting it on the Esper Sentinel, because now they don't get to draw a card. Because now we can kill the Esper Sentinel as well. Because it can only trigger once a turn. And they're also tapped down with their Spellbomb, so bit of a mistake from our opponent there. Well, they just don't know what they're playing against. I won't say it's a mistake. It just ended up just not being the right answer is all. I do like the tech of Urza's Saga out of our opponent here. I do like it. There's no reason to get our Liliana down here. Next turn, they'll have to choose between using their mana for Saga or if they use that to return our Mishra's factory to hand, like that's perfectly fine. That saves our Saga tokens later too. So go for it, opponent, if that's what you want to do. Can't imagine that's what they want to do. Yeah. That would be a waste of that card, I think. Especially seeing that we now have an Urza Saga. Hopefully we draw a black source next turn is what I'm hoping. That lets us play Raven's Crime and protect ourselves. That's not a black source, but it's still pretty good. We do want to make this Saga token, or at least leave the Mishra's Factory back, just so we can block. Okay, so Prismatic Ending. Yeah, we're in good shape right here. I think we're winning the race, albeit it's a very close race. Because they can't bounce our blocker unless they drew a land here. And if they drew a land, we kind of want them to play the land instead of hold it anyway. Okay. We're just going to block that for sure. Oh, that's a Shadow Spear. That's much worse for us. Yeah, Shadow Spear makes our life a little bit more difficult. There's really no point in saving the 1 damage at that spot, right? Like, doesn't actually do anything. Okay, so Black Source. Does Black Source do anything for us at this point? So I think we have to... It lets us make a second Saga token, so that's good. So our Saga tokens can block theirs a lot better now. Or at least we don't die immediately. Yeah, so we're still in a situation where we have to double block and then both of them die to the double block. So it's not good, but we're not just dead. So that's good. Opponent takes 5. Well, I gotta give, as much as poo-poo Shrieking Affliction, I gotta give it credit for the games it wins too, right? Like I can't just poo-poo it. Okay, so I mean we have to do this because we die if we don't. But all they have to do is activate their Yawgmoth Nexus here. Well, it doesn't matter. They can just bounce whatever to our hand and we lose, right? Like I don't know why they didn't just do that. They might not see the line either, though. I don't know. Yeah, it's just like anything they bounce here. They're like, and there's no way for me to block where that doesn't make me lose. Yeah, it's like it didn't matter. I don't know why we played it so slow. Because like it's like we saw their whole line there, but it doesn't matter what we do in that spot. Yep, yeah. Well, punished by the 1 card once again. That said we get punished by. Don't mind it though. I've just played so much in this meta with this deck that like when you know every single situation of what your opponent can draw that kills you and then it just happens, it can get old when you're this is like the only matchup where Shrieking Affliction's playable. Any of the cheap interaction spells? We do want the other Pithing Needle. Don't care about the Void Mirror. Funeral Charm is only okay. We'll go down 1 Funeral Charm. And we'll go down 1 Thoughtseize because that's against a Lurrus deck. Thoughtseize is just a worst Inquisition. Is there an argument to keep Funeral Charm over a second Thoughtseize? I guess not really. But let's do it. Trespasser. We got our money's worth this league though. We got to play the Graveyard Trespasser. We got to play it. We got to flip it. It did its thing. It looked good. Won us a game, right? So we do always take the play against this deck, is my opinion. Because even if like Esper Sentinel changes the whole dynamic, where even if you don't want to take it with your Thoughtseize, it will time walk you, and the time walk is like not worth the extra card, or you have to give them the extra card back. So better off just go ahead and take the play against them, I think. And we have a situation here where we can take the Esper Sentinel, and we're going to take it. Looking at the contents of their hand, if you want to get a better look at it, okay argument for either Sigarda's Aid or Colossal Hammer. The problem is they draw the other half to either of those. They just got us. So I don't like them leading. Okay, I was going to say I don't like them leading on Sigarda's Aid there. I think we can cut them off white here. Yeah, and we drew the extra land, so let's just do that. We get pretty far ahead with that line. It's pretty arbitrary, the castle versus the swamp, which we keep here, but glad they played their creature out there. It makes things a little less complicated. We can save the Fatal Push for an Yawgmoth Nexus in the future. But this is what we pay for, right? Good Smallpoxes, Graveyard Trespasser being a playable Magic card in Modern. That's why we sign up for this deck, am I right? So we do know Colossal Hammer's in hand. Just play the Forest, pass the turn. When they equip the Yawgmoth, as they hopefully will. I guess there's probably another turn before they get to equip it, but we're in good shape in this spot. 2 Yawgmoth Nexuses is annoying. We'll not pretend that it's not. Okay, Lily's fine. But if we Lily tick up and they draw land and they keep the Colossus Hammer instead of the other card in hand, we're just dead. So we can't play the Liliana, or we give ourselves a chance to die next turn for like really no reason. And it doesn't even have to be a Colossus Hammer. It could be just any of their 0-drop, or a land. It could be any of their 0-drop creatures as well. maybe it was right to play, like, incrementally to play the Nurturing Peatland there, to make them think maybe our game plan is to just... okay. Let's play Liliana. We're going to tick up and discard our Smallpox here to try to make them think the shields are down. Hopefully that signals to them that we don't have anything. They discard the Colossus Hammer. That's odd. They have a Prismatic Ending in hand, maybe? Weirdly, Smallpox Stone Raining them there is a little bit relevant, but like any creature is also good, so I'm not sure. Not sure what their game plan is there. Don't know the last card in hand, so now we don't know the last 2 cards in hand. Okay. In this spot, we'll just take 1 Infect. Okay, yeah, they thought they got by thinking the shields were down. We played that correctly in the spot. Now they're pretty far away from equipping a Colossus Hammer, so we're in good shape. Okay, so now we just Pithing Needle, name Yawgmoth Nexus, so we don't have to worry about instant speed kills. Yeah, Yawgmoth Nexus is the correct answer there. Okay, I was going to say Pure Steel Paladin would have made that decision seem a little suspect, because had they gotten to play that turn and they had another artifact, they could equip Colossus Hammer to it for free, but we had the sorcery speed back up here with the Liliana in a pretty good position. I think we're going to cycle this Peatland instead of trying to save for Castle. So if we draw another land, we're in the same position. We just play it, tick Liliana up, and then we activate Castle next turn. So, okay, it did not. Okay, I hit the button to turn off the auto yields 3 times, but once it decides that's what it's going to do, that's what it's going to do. If they have something in response to this, okay, that's fine. Now we can just play the. Now we can just cycle this Castle Lochtwain. So ended up not mattering. But I could tell even if you hit the opposite button. Okay, does our opponent remember? I was like, if you just bring Lurrus to hand, we're just gonna make you discard it. So no point in doing that. Our opponent figures that out. We'll draw a card. Dismember's fine. Not my favorite, but it's fine. Well, now we'll probably... Yeah, we'll cycle this now. We really want to get something a little bit more aggressive. Next turn, we'll just ult Liliana. They'll probably scoop to that. We'll say you can keep your lands or you can keep your permanents. Well, we don't even have to do that. Maybe we don't even alter, I don't know. Yeah, probably just don't alter, I don't think. Yeah, I don't see a reason for it. We'll kill the Lurrus on their turn. So they get rid of their Mim Knight, which they'll just get it right back with their Lurrus, but we don't care. Like we care about killing the Lurrus. Liliana's safe. We don't have to discard anything. So how is Lurrus worded? We'll have to read it. So you can cast aura and equipment as though it had flash. Okay. So specifically, if they draw land and play the Lurrus, if we dismember, they can Colossal Hammer in response to it. Okay. Dismember your Lurrus. Okay, so they had a tapped land there. That's kind of the consequence of trying to splash blue in your deck, I guess. I mean, we just might as well do this. Like there's no downside to doing this. Well, Liliana, you got to make sure that we'll move these two to this pile. Move. Yeah, those are fine piles. You just want to make sure Sigarda's Aid and Colossal Hammers, and yeah, that's fine. Opponent just doesn't have much going on regardless. Could have probably waited one more turn so that we had Edict Protection after the fact. We're just not really drawing into anything clockwise here, which is annoying for both us and our opponent, I'm sure. Probably technically right to go ahead and activate Castle there, but the 1 damage is worth more than the Inquisition, I think, than having the option if we want to keep Inquisition or not. Like, I think there's like literally every other card in our deck besides Inquisition we would keep in that situation. Okay, Lavinia, I mean, we're just going to make you sack that. Don't know why you would board that in against us, but that's fine. We're actually just going to Smallpox it away. Get rid of our Urborg. We don't need it. Tick up. We have drawn just 0 action here, though. Like, no Urza, Sagas, nothing, and our opponent's just saying that they're here for it. We're just going to play both Lilianas here, because we'll end up discarding this Liliana anyway. So we might as well keep the one with more loyalty counters on it. Not sure, like, if I'm with the opponent here, I can't imagine, like, not scooping at this point, but I guess they didn't really see a win con from us the last game, so fair's fair. Make us have it. Our clock time's way ahead of them, though. Because we do play pretty fast on this channel. That's our goal. Each player discard a card. I mean, this should be the game right here, but if they're going to make us play it out, we'll play it out. I guess they could draw their own Urza Saga and be kind of at parity, maybe a little better than us even, but okay, I was like, surely to God that they see that that's going to be it for them, right? Like, what we got there? Lavinia, I don't think is relevant against us. I don't know why they brought that card in. Is there anything like our board wipes are 3 CMC, and like we don't run any mana ramp anyway, so that doesn't matter. We don't run any 0 mana spells. Like, it's probably just they had a couple extra cards in there that are like just like maybe like Ornithopters or something that they wanted everything to be a threat on its own since we discard them so much. But regardless, I don't know. We're looking pretty good. Game 3 will be rough on the draw because they know what they're up against. They'll keep hitting hand with the Esper Sentinel, and that's not what we want to see. You know, land Esper Sentinel will be good enough for them. To keep it, we don't want Collective Brutality. We didn't see an instant or sorcery all game that game. We really only want that card if it's like against decks that are super fast, that this card, all 3 modes, or at least 2 out of the 3 modes, are going to be relevant almost every game. And it lets us like catch back up to them. And the only mode that would be relevant would be killing a creature, but they have so many instant speed tricks to make their creature bigger. And they have like Yawgmoth Nexuses that protect them. But yeah, opponent drawing a ton of extra cards at the end there, kind of, I think, insinuating that they were frustrated, that they're like, oh, if I just drew any action spell, I would have got out of the game. But we just drew the entire control half of our deck, and they had a spell that was relevant almost every play. We just killed it. This is fine against them. The Urza Saga is a way to win. Once again, ahead significantly on clock. Okay, so Gardaze on turn 1 we actually like. Map is okay here. Do I need to lead on? They don't have a spell that matters if they have black or not, so there's no reason to not lead on Urborg. So let's just do that. We'll get the Colossus Hammer here, and then when their Stoneforge Mystic gets a Colossus Hammer, we'll just Thoughtseize away that too. That's the card that kills us right now. The creature threats we can deal with as they come. Just play your Stoneforge. We'll steal your hammer. Then hopefully we can, just play this Saga and then not pay attention that it can tap for black. Hopefully we can just kill their Yawgmoth Nexus too. Let's fire this off first. If they have another spell that we want to Thoughtseize, we can Thoughtseize it, but don't think we care too much. Like I said, hopefully they'll forget that this can tap for black and just go for it. Yeah, we'll wait until this thing is tapped. We'll take the Stone Rain here. The damage is probably the way that they kill us, if they do kill us. But we're winning the race now. Yeah, we'll play our Factory, and we know that there's... We know about both lands in hand, right? We only know for sure one hand, I guess. So that could be a little bit froggy if they have a third Colossus Hammer. I guess they just have it. Yeah, I'm not willing to... we wouldn't just die if they have the hammer, so... Not necessarily willing to make that bet that they have a third one. Think we're pretty safe. Sometimes, it kind of punished us in a way last game. You always take the play that's like the obvious. Let's see. Well, Pithing Needle doesn't actually do anything with how their board's set up right now. So let's get a rack, and we have a Expedition map to get another spell, or to get another Saga, I mean. So we've got a really good clock on them here. But yeah, when you have your opponent has drawn almost their entire playset already, or like half their playset, that's like the one card that you don't really necessarily want to play around. Okay. Being able to get that Lurrus out of hand is pretty imperative here. That telegraphs that they for sure do not have anything. So just... there's no point taking the damage here. We'll play the Inquisition. If we see a second relevant spell, we'll take it as well. Okay, Flusterstorm. We could just pay the 2, but we're not going to. That way we can have Fatal Push up too. Yep, take that. We can only swing with 1, because in case they do draw into a hammer, we do need to block. Or at least have the option to Fatal Push and block if we need to, too. Yeah, it's fine. I think in this spot, we still pretty clearly kill the Yawgmoth Nexus. There's no reason to hold back, I don't think. Because that's the only one that kills us in one turn. If we hold back a blocker each turn, so... I like that game plan. Let's just play our rack. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and pay that. If we fire up our factory, do they have to block? I mean, they got to block anyway if we just attack with both. Let's just do that. That way there's no, like, they can't just Stoneforge Mystic and block. With this block, they die at their upkeep, though, so... Yeah. We don't have to activate the Mishra's Factory or anything like that. They just die. Yep. Opponent kind of... Yeah. I don't like their setup with the blue. They're trying something different, I'm sure, to try to get an edge against all these Ragavan decks, but... You win some, you lose some. I don't think they played poorly. I think they were kind of conceding that spot anyway. It was kind of a bad spot for them. So they weren't too focused on how they blocked there and what the racks did exactly. So 2-1. This is one of those leagues that, like, we could very easily have been 3-0 right now. You tend to get a lot of these like this, like in match 2, where you're a I'll say, like, 8-rack is great for taking to paper tournaments because 4-1 and sometimes 3-2 will get you in the top 8, and you can beat pretty much any deck. Like, even the bad matchups like Tron and things like that are, like, not really that bad of matchups. They're like 35-40% chance of winning, which is, but maybe even higher than that. I would say, like, if you're really good and experienced at the matchup, it's probably over 40%, I would say. Especially if you're playing against, like, a lower experienced Tron player in the specific matchup. Even if they're a good Magic player, you have a pretty good edge. But yeah, overall, you'll tend to go 3-2, 4-1 a lot if you play these sorts of decks. Same thing with Jund, and same thing even with the Is It Ragavan decks, really. I think the reason why you see them see so much more success is because so much more people play them. They are incrementally better because Ragavan is so good, and cards like Expressive Iteration is very good. But we've got a good league so far. Happy with how it's going. Breeding Pool doesn't make me think that we have to lead on Thoughtseize necessarily, but so we'll lead on Inquisition in case for whatever reason they're an aggro deck. We have to take the Counterspell because we want to. I was going to say that that's the only time that you might want to lead on Thoughtseize, like as I mentioned in Game 1. So they had the Hall of the Storm Giants. Let's see. Let's Ravenscry them and see what they do in response to that. If they just go ahead and cycle their Icefang Waddle here, yeah, okay, that's good. So they cycle their Coatl, and that means we know that the shields are down no matter what. They discard their Cryptic Command. We'll get the Saga, and we should be able to take the Wilderness Reclamation. That should put them in a hard position to win this game now. Low on resources in multiple ways. Maybe you take the Counterspell here. I actually think that is the right. I think the Reclamation's the right play. Just this is the whole point of their deck, is to play this card, and we can win with Saga on its own basically. So we don't have to play into their Counterspell either. We're going to save this second Saga so we can get full value out of both of them potentially. This will be a longer grind of your game. Like, we're not racing for a Nihil Spellbomb or anything like that. Okay, so Counterspell, 1 unknown. Our opponent's creature does not have Death Touch, thankfully. This on its own should put plenty of pressure on them. Would have liked to have drawn a land there, but... So we could have played another land beside the Saga token. I wonder what our opponent even thinks that we're on at this point. Like, a lot of opponents, like, if I talk to them, like, I'll talk to people a little bit more when I'm off stream in the chat. Like, I'll have a conversation with them occasionally. They tend to think that we're mono black control of some sort. Even when they see the rack, they don't really think of rack. They a lot of times will just assume that this is like some one of in our deck that we're just using to put more pressure on them. They cast a Icefang Coatl here. We're pretty fine with that trade. I think our constructs are just going to run away with this game. Field of Ruining this. Okay, that's not the end of the world, actually. We can just get another one with our Expedition map. So still one counterspell, one unknown. It'll be a long time before this hall is turned on. Interestingly, I did not know that it had Ward 3, so that's pretty neat. So let's Crime here, I think, is the right play. We'll see if they counterspell this. Okay, so they discard the counterspell. Let's just get in, and then we'll crack the map, play the Saga, play the rack. If they have a second Icefang Coatl, it's a bit annoying, but then we have good pressure with our racks, so fine how this game's playing out, how this turn's playing out. Typically speaking, these Wilderness Reclamation decks we have a pretty good matchup against because they don't have the same good card advantage like a blue-white control deck has. They have like late game mana advantage basically. Like they need this card for their deck to do much, one. And then after that, after they have this card, then they need the cards that are like good value for spending a lot of mana into them, like the Deluge and like the Memory Deluge, the new one. That's why people are playing it again. I mean, we can't just sit back and let this Coatl brick wall us forever. We're going to get more tokens. We're the beatdown in this matchup, though, is kind of what I'm getting at. Bounce spell would be annoying if they just so happen to have a bounce spell. Opponent does the same thing that our last opponent did, and they are going to lose the game because of it, and they'll probably be salty when they find out that that's how it works. But can't tell them, you know, like it's not like an F&M where I can be like, hey, that actually doesn't work the way you think it works. And you're going to die because of it, but it does make us have, like, our constructs 1/1 lower, I guess. So it's not, like, completely irrelevant, but I don't know. I think I would just target myself and draw 2 in that spot. It just depends on what your deck does, though. Right now, we have lethal just by swinging in, and we have fatal push back up. Yep, they're dead, because they got a Shark Typhoon here, probably. So we'll let the Typhoon resolve. Kill it. Okay, pretty easy game. Not a big fan of these sorts of decks in multiple ways. We can get underneath them pretty well. Hand Disruption typically beats Counterspell, like especially when you don't actually have to cast your threats with Urza Saga, so not too worried about this matchup. Trespasser seems a little bit clunky, but that's what we're here to do. It's so bad against Coatl, though. I'm sorry, I can't bring it in. I want to bring it in because I want to play with this card. It's cool. It does the thing a lot of times, but it's awful against Coatl because they don't have to. The ward ability is not relevant against them because their flash threats kill it from blocking, like Coatl and Shark Typhoon. So it is not great in this matchup. Collective Brutality, however, is pretty good. Funeral Charm is good enough. Fatal Pushes are amazing because that kills all of their threats. Dismember is worth taking out probably, unless we want to take out 2 lands. We're going to take out 1 Urborg. I don't think they're Sultai. I think they're just Simic. We don't know if they have Planeswalkers or if they have Snapcasters, so keeping those in as a 1-of is fine. Spellbomb at the worst, it can cycle. Pithing Needle maybe can hit something relevant late game, like even if it's just a fetch land or something. This hand's pretty good. We're going to get Veiled Assembled here probably. I would say almost definitely. So let's just not play into it. Let's just play a rack and pass. They don't have counterspell this turn. There's not anything that we have to get out of their hand before this turn's over. So I just don't see a point in getting Veiled for no reason. Now we get to see if our opponent is 3-color or not. So they are Sultai. So I am glad that I took out the one Urborg. That's something I've been doing more recently too, is if our opponent is a 3-color deck and has black in it, then I will take out one Urborg instead of one Swamp. Just so one of those things incrementally better. Opponent is hardcore representing Veil of Summer here. Like, there's no other reason why they would play the way that they've played it. So we will Inquisition in this spot and just make them cast it. Like, I can't imagine that they don't have it. Yeah, like that would have been like the worst sequencing ever. But like, if we got to get rid of it eventually. Now we have this as backup, and we have very big beaters in play potentially, and don't have to play into their counter magic at all. So, and notably, because they chose to get a Triome there, which is a bit odd, their Ice Fang Codals are turned off for a very, very long time. Like, it'll be like turn 5, turn 6 before their Codals have Death Touch. We do need to play around Archmage's Charm a little bit with our Construct tokens, but they're largely irrelevant if our opponent has control of them. So, since they have both of these here, I'm okay with playing this Urborg out. It'll save us some damage later for our own Peatland. Seems like the black is probably a splash in their deck. Yeah, that's fine. We're going to go ahead and make this now. I don't think there's even any stifle effects that are playable in Modern as far as I know, but just in case they are. Situations like these make me wish like Defense Grid was 1 mana or something. I don't know if you ever played that card. Once again, pretty combo-y card. We'll make them have another Veil here. You know, there's no reason attacking into something that, like Cryptic, I don't know. Just a couple different things. So, Growth Spiral. So there's no second Veil. Opponent probably kept their hand solely on the strength of their Veil last game. What the hell is that? Consume the Meek. I guess we just get rid of this, because we don't care about the Endurance at this point. That card makes me think that our opponent... Oh, it's an instant speed. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. I was going to say, like, the amount that card is worse than, like, every other card that's a board wipe in black, but it is an instant speed spell. Shocked that our opponent didn't play Endurance there. Like, no reason to not just go ahead and get a threat in play. If we get a game 3, that might lead us to take out a second Urborg too, though, because I think that Triomes are really their only black mana source. I think there was a time playing the deck that 8-Rack struggled a little bit more against this sort of deck. We're not going to check anything at this point. The Sharks still aren't big enough to kill our creature. Endurance is pretty meh. If they don't block at all, we can Thoughtseize, Liliana tick up, and they're just dead. So here comes Endurance. I don't know why they would tuck my graveyard back in unless they have Snapcaster in their deck. Okay. We'll use this Thoughtseize to clear the counterspell if they have it. Then we'll... Okay, so... Okay, well, that should be a pretty easy game at this point. Very, very, very easy game 2 here so far. I don't think that there's anything that could draw to get them out of the spot. They'd have to be able to kill both of these and deal with our board state outside of that. Yep. So easy 3-1. Could be 4-0. I'll have to look through. Well, I won't even torture myself and look through to see if I missed anything. That 1-2, but 3-1. Notably, we have not played against a Ragavan deck. And the one Esper Sentinel deck we played against, like, they were trying to splash blue, and that's like they had some jankier spells because they were kind of they probably have the same syndrome I have, that you get sick of losing to certain decks and sick of certain game patterns, and they were trying to switch it up a little bit, but I don't know. Graveyard Trespasser looks okay. I'm not in love with the card, but I don't hate it either. Like, it was good against... We would have lost the match... We would have went 0-2 match 2 if we hadn't had Graveyard Trespasser in our deck. The only thing I can think of is maybe I just need to go ahead and mulligan more aggressively to Graveyard Hate. But the problem is it takes them so long to get their engine online. When you have Hand Disruption plus Edict in hand, you have to just assume that you're going to draw like one of your 11 potential Graveyard Hate pieces as the game progresses, like before turn 7, before turn 8. You've got to just, like, you know, and you have Expedition Map to even get a Saga, and that's another way to get Graveyard Hate. So 12, really. But doesn't always work out. Sometimes you get beat up on. So tell me in the comments what you think if you're still watching the video. If you like the idea of us playing mulliganing Graveyard Hate in that matchup, or sticking to our guns and keeping the Edict. Opponent is Manacymbal, nice guy. If we lose to this guy, I'm okay with it. One of the trophy leaders, actually. Usually plays cool control mid-range decks. Maybe shouldn't have kept this hand. I don't feel like playing to get one of these out. Hopefully he's got a turn 2 play we can Fatal Push. So, at least 4 color here. We'll play a Spellbomb, kind of threaten that we could do something, but our 2 draw steps being Urborgs are a bit annoying. If he doesn't show us any graveyard interaction, we'll just cycle this Spellbomb. Okay, I'm glad that we played this the way we played it here, because this means that he doesn't know that we're on rack right now. Like I said, it's been like one of those things that I remember playing a game, and I think he kind of thought against a painter deck a long time ago that he was playing, and I think maybe he thought I was stream sniping him in that situation, but as you can see here, I'm clearly not. So don't have to worry about that. I think I might just let him continue to not know that we're a rack deck. I actually like that, because he's going to play in a much different way as soon as he sees these racks. So he is a... Okay, that's worth noting. He is a Reanimator deck. We don't want to get rid of his Unburial Rites, though. We did pop our Spellbomb early because we didn't know that that he was a Reanimator deck, unfortunately. That was probably a situation... Funny enough, like I said, the last game that I played, I had a friend basically think that I was... Say that he thought I stream sniped when I played him, but as you can see, we are not. And like me turn wanting Nihil Spellbomb there might make him think that again too, which is kind of funny. We will get rid of our Urborg again. So we're not worried about playing this Liliana anytime soon. I think we've successfully goosed him into not knowing we're a rack deck, but it probably won't matter. We let him do all the work for us with his Liliana. They'll be able to play the Archon next turn, so we very specifically have to draw a land. And if we draw a land, we can Fatal Push their token, then Smallpox. Okay, that's fine. So we got there, land-wise. Yeah, we'll Fatal Push. Smallpox. So we're in decent shape here. The Harbinger is a very fast clock, though. It ticks up very aggressively. Like it's like basically a 3-turn clock. So they can get a blocker here. If they top decked a second creativity there, that'd be rough. But like I said, Archon's good. I like this deck a lot. Manacymbal always plays really sweet decks. So we do get a good look at their deck here. So Wrenn and 6 is worth knowing about. Okay, I was going to say we got punished for getting rid of our... And we'll just concede here. There's no way we can win the game from this spot. But if we could... I don't know, we got a lot of information out of that. I don't know, if we would have kept our Urborg, we would have been in great shape, but wasn't necessarily expecting him to just immediately have it the next time around. That's all right. Hopefully we get to show off some Graveyard Trespasser on Manacymbal's stream. That'd be neat. I don't think I've ever actually stopped by a stream myself, but sure, it's great. Seems like a nice guy. We are going to cut the Raven's Crime here instead of the Funeral Charms. This is simply, and we're going to cut 2 of the Thoughtseizes. This is because Funeral Charm can kill the Dwarven tokens at instant speed and allow us to, Fatal Push does the same thing. And if we're having to choose a blind card to Fatal Push, or excuse me, to cast, like to get rid of their hand, we can do that at instant speed at their upkeep. Little things like that make it just barely better than Raven's Crime's repeatability, because they do want to get cards in their graveyard for value. Let's see if we want to get another Edict in here. Probably one of the Edicts over one of the Dismembers. We'll do that. You don't want... Maybe switch a Smallpox out too, but I think they're... Yeah, just because we brought in 3 Graveyard Trespassers, so the Sudden Edict is a little bit better. But I think we played that correctly. We kind of let them not know that we're a rack deck for a long time. But they also played us like a fiddle too. They didn't let us know that we were a Reanimator deck around that Nihil Spellbomb. So he's a good Magic player. Plays a lot of Magic on stream, I'm sure. Go check him out. He's a cool guy. From everything I've heard and the little I've seen. But yeah, we are okay with a 3-2 today if Manacymbal's the guy we lose to. But we want to get that 4-1. We want to keep that money flowing, right? Hopefully they have some of the bugs fixed so we can... I would say that my win rate, sans the bugs with ad nauseum, has been like 70-75%. And with Rack lately, it's been closer to 60 to 65. This league looks pretty good. So if the more stuff like this you play against, we'll actually take the die roll. Okay, I guess we're keeping this. Well, we drew almost all the graveyard hate in our deck. That's funny. Funny how that one worked out. I guess we're just going to play a rack here. We may just go ahead and cycle this Spellbomb at their instep. We'll make sure that they don't have like a Maelstrom Pulse or something like that. But your move, opponent. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of Graveyard Hate. We're just going to cycle that again. Try to hit a land, and we did. Don't like that it's Urborg, but we'll live with it. So we're playing the Jank too. His Jank's a little bit better than our Jank, I'm sure. But we're going for it. Hopefully we get it flipped. If he plays Liliana down ticks, that's actually... Yeah, I kind of like that. We can just play the second one too. Gain some life off of it. Only if we have something... Yeah, okay, so we'll get rid of this Fatal Push, happily. We'll do our mini Helix impersonation. Going to kind of give him a rough way to go in chat. We should have kept up Fatal Push here, probably, but... We do get got pretty hard. Okay, so now we lose our Liliana too, so now we're just very dead. Sweet deck from our opponent, but when you have the nut, there's just nothing we can do about it. We'll play it out. We'll play for an Edict. There's no sense in holding the land because we'll just discard it to the Archon anyway. Gets rid of our main win con here. We pretty much have no outs at this point. What a sweet deck by our opponent, and very sweet gameplay. Giving our opponent kind of a hard time. he thought it was pretty funny. Like I said, like the guy. And that's our video for today. Sweet. Thank you guys for watching. 3-2, but I'll go ahead and post it up.